Mr. Rajan Matthews, the DG of COAI, joins us at this point. Mr. Matthews, how would you react, particularly to the reserve price being laid at 3,500 crores?
Absolutely disastrous for the industry. This is a real body blow to the industry. We were hoping for a consistent NTP 2011 policy, which basically said the industry is not to be viewed as a cash cow or the goose that lays the golden egg. And what do we see? Here TRAI comes and starts. Please be very careful in terms of what we are talking about. This is not the price that you get. This is the reserve price. So it is the expectation that based on the TRAI recommendations, operators and those who are interested start bidding at this price. Now, first of all, it appears to be totally inconsistent with what the TRAI itself did in terms of pricing recommendations vis-a-vis what happened last May. So again, we find that the whole pricing spectrum seems to be moving north and north and north. We know what happened with 3G overpricing. We know what has happened with BWA. Banking has dried up domestically. FIIs have dried up. And we were hoping that this instance, we would get a rational, reasonable, and consistent recommendation from the TRAI. This is disastrous for the industry.
Rajan, but if I use 2008 floor price for benchmarking purposes, between 2008 and 2012, the telecom dynamics have changed. The number of subscribers have increased. The migration to value-added services has also gone up. So in hindsight, this is a 100% jump. But if I look at the revenue mix and the contribution, things have changed.
Things have changed, but the question is, has things changed positively or negatively? If you look at the whole financial condition of the industry, the change has not been positive. Every one of our operators is losing margin share, is losing revenue, and the pricing has come to rock bottom. And so basically, yes, there have been changes, but they have not been in the positive direction. So the health of the industry is seriously at stake. And trying to extract these additional premiums is really not in keeping with the national telecom policy, which talks about affordability. Where is affordability in this particular recommendation?
Break up the entire number for us. How much more do you think telecom companies will now have to shell out in order to buy the new 2G spectrum?
Well, if you're looking at a pan-India license, you're talking at somewhere between, again, just to start off with, about 4,500 crores. Again, if the numbers are correct, and we are looking a little more closely, 900 megahertz in terms of refarming is north of about 7,000, 8,000 crores for for the whole spectrum going back. And then if you look at 700, you're talking about 5 times BWA pricing. Just outlandish and outrageous. Totally inconsistent with anything we've seen, even globally. And, when you look at these types of prices, again, starting prices, these are reserve prices, please. So the question is, where do you expect this pricing to go? And so again, it comes back to the whole question of saying...
Rajan, your point is well taken that this is a reserve price. But if your view is that this price is stretched, why do you expect a war to happen then?
So, first of all, the immediate question in my mind is, who's going to turn up for the show? If the ticket prices to the dance are so high, I would say that, it would be some person with an outlandish business plan that is even wanting to step up to this particular plate to even start the bidding at this process. So, the whole question that one has to ask is that, what's going to happen to the industry vis-a-vis going forward?
All right, Mr. Matthew, just stay on with us. Arvind Subramanian, Partner Director at the Boston Consulting Group, also joins in with his views on the recommendations laid out. Arvind, the biggest talking point, of course, has been the reserve price for the 2G spectrum being laid at 3,500 crores. Now, as I was just talking to my reporter, if we were just looking at 5 megahertz as, just the basic quantum of the kind of megahertz that any telecom company would have to operate on, you're looking at shelling about $3.5–4 billion, and that's just at the reserve price level.
Yeah, it's quite disappointing to hear this kind of high reserve price being set. I think it has multiple ramifications. One, this makes it very unattractive for new entrants to bid for any kind of startup spectrum, because their business case will not justify 15,000 crores of one-time spectrum costs. Second, even for the incumbents, this sets whatever price gets discovered in this auction sets the floor for the prices at which their spectrum will get renewed, starting 2014 onwards, when a lot of the incumbent licenses come up for renewal. So they're not going to be particularly aggressive either, because they know that they have a much larger price to pay when those licenses come up for renewal, not just for the 4.4 megahertz startup spectrum, but in many cases they have 8 megahertz or even 10 megahertz, including the 900 band, which I understand is going to be, the reserve price there is 2 times the 1800 band.
Rajan,
so overall, I see this as quite a negative kind of benchmark that's been set.
Rajan, the silver lining, maybe this could be the silver lining, which is that this will create a strong entry barrier for new players, and a strong protection barrier for existing players, which means after 2 years or after 3 years, once the consolidation process starts in the telecom industry, Rajan, maybe the existing players will get pricing power back.
I think that's an almost Pyrrhic victory. You say that the prices go up, it'll prevent it. Let me tell you, our incumbent operators have driven the prices down to affordable prices for everybody. So we are not afraid of competition. We are not afraid of folks coming in. As long as the ground is level, as long as there are consistent policies, as long as the health of the industry is taken care of, I don't think our incumbent operators are afraid of that. We've done very well in competition and say bring on the competition. But let's make sure that the policy guidelines laid by the government is consistent with what TRAI is recommending. And this is what the Supreme Court also said. In the last go-around, the Supreme Court made the observation that TRAI was out of sync in terms of the national telecom policy, in terms of what was being achieved. Here we are trying to get broadband penetration, increase rural penetration. These types of prices, even at the reserve level, make absolutely no sense.
How do you expect the industry to react to these recommendations, Mr. Matthews?
Very, very negatively. I think, just cursorily talking to a couple of our CEOs, they are devastated. They're saying, first of all, we're bleeding. We're all in the red. We are trying to, roll out our networks into the rural areas in consistency with the national prerogatives. We're trying to roll out broadband. We're trying to roll out 3G. Nobody is lending to us. FIs are drying up. In the face of all of this, we are marching ahead in terms of holding our prices. Please remember that the prices have remained relatively consistent and low all across this time, even when 3G prices went stratospheric. So what is going to happen to the industry? I think people are going to say, listen, enough's enough. We are going to have to basically say, look at the single issue of refarming. This is not refarming, this is redistribution. You're taking away spectrum on which 200 million people depend in terms of service. And if you say you're going to embark on this grand strategy, which, by the way, has not been done anywhere else in the world, perhaps in Denmark, because there were only 3 operators and they wanted to expand, the context is totally inconsistent in terms of even the whole refarming issue. I'm telling you that this is certainly going to start leading to litigation. So this is not good for the industry, it's not good for the country, it's not good for national telecom policy, and it's not good for the consumer.
Arvind, from an investor perspective and as somebody who consults on the sector, do you think that this makes the business of telecom unviable, which has been a key sector of interest for a lot of foreign institutional investors?
Yeah, let's take a moment to just consider the business case of even the incumbents. If you're talking about, for any of them just to maintain their current spectrum position at these kind of prices would be, roughly a 20,000 crore outlay. And I haven't picked up in the news yet whether we're talking about a 10-year spectrum award or a 20-year spectrum award. Even if one would assume these prices are being set for 20 years, that still means an additional 1,000 crores of amortization year on year, in addition to servicing that to 20,000 crores of funding, which is, let's say at 15% cost of capital, about another 3,000 crores. So 4,000 crores off your EBITDA, which is a big hit, and there aren't too many telcos, even among the incumbents, who have 4,000 crores of buffer in their EBITDA today.
Rajan, like you said, that if the show tickets are expensively priced, no one will turn up for the show. Do you think at such a strong reserve price, the industry is unlikely to participate?
I would say that is a very, very real possibility, and those brave souls who do try to turn up for the show would have some type of an understanding of the marketplace that all of us seem to be missing.
Arvind, does it make very little commercial sense for any of the existing telecom companies, Arvind, to bid or buy auction at this reserve price?
I would think so. I don't see, as I mentioned, either the new entrants rebidding for the spectrum that even they give away during the license cancellation, or for the incumbents to bid at these kinds of prices. So I see a very real possibility of this auction, if it were to happen in the next few months, being a non-event at these kinds of reserve prices. There won't even be participation to the extent of spectrum being awarded.
Rajan, this is still a recommendation, and recommendation is a recommendation subject to change.
Sure.
We are certainly hoping that the DOT and the Minister and the Telecom Commission will see reason, will understand that the national telecom policy is going in one direction and TRAI's recommendations are coming in another direction. Please read NTP 2011. Please read the national next 12 5-year plan. Considerable amount of investments required in terms of rolling out networks, penetration, rural, broadband coming in. And clearly, when you look at this consistent approach that is being enunciated by the government itself, we're hoping that the government will see the inconsistency in terms of this pricing recommendation, and hopefully saner minds will prevail and say, let's take a relook at this thing and bring it down to reasonable levels where serious players can continue to invest and continue to roll out. We've made this country the second largest telecom country in the world. I think this is disastrous, and let's not stop, let's not wait here, let's keep that march going. We've shown the world what we can do. It's a shame that we are now entering into a period of such strong, heavy headwinds regulatory wise and policy inconsistency wise. I think it's time for the government to step up and say, listen, this is the poster boy that took us forward, this is the network that our future rides on. E-commerce, e-governance, e-health, e-education, all riding on our networks. I think this type of thing is fully inconsistent with that vision which the government has set, and I'm hoping that the government will realize that and make suitable amends.
All right, Arvind, the same question to you, because even the CDMA reserve price is 1.5 times of the 3G reserve price, so they've left no room where the government is not trying to capitalize on this opportunity of selling spectrum to telecom players. In that light, what do you think would be perhaps the kind of amendments that the ministry should do to these recommendations to make it a bit more viable for the industry?
Firstly, it has to, the reserve price in an auction, as was mentioned earlier, is the starting point of the auction. It's not the end point of the auction. So it has to be set at a reasonable level, which induces many bidders to come in and participate in the auction. And then, depending on the mechanics of the auction, how much spectrum is put up, how many bidders you have, you will discover a certain price. And that's the good classical way of doing it. By setting a very unreasonable threshold in terms of a reserve price, you're only dissuading many potential players who are interested in this market from actually participating in the auction. So that's the first thing I would strongly urge people to look at. We have to recognize that TRAI's recommendations cannot be taken lightly. They are the regulator, they are an independent regulator. So DOT and for the Telecom Commission to sort of overrule those recommendations requires a fair amount of thought and conviction. So I don't see this as an easy process going forward from here.
Rajan, I haven't got any official comments from TRAI, but if TRAI really supports their argument by saying that in 2008 the auction price was underpriced, there was a 2G scam and this is the real auction price. 2008 the number of subscribers were low, now number of subscribers are high, number of people using or number of subscribers using data services were low, now that is only increasing on a daily basis. How would you defend that?
First of all, the whole process of auction is to get away from speculation and to drive into reality. And that is exactly what the Supreme Court said. They, first of all, gave a very narrow mandate to the TRAI saying, please look at the licenses that were cancelled and come up with normative recommendations. Unfortunately, the whole ambit has been widened to include 700 and 900 refarming, which of course we don't understand why it has been so broad. But again, coming back to this issue in terms of saying, okay, if this is the situation going forward, right, if one looks at this whole policy initiative that TRAI has come back, of course it's a recommendation. And of course, these additional parameters have been taken into account. But let the market decide. Let's go into the auction process, set a reasonable price. Nobody said that that's going to be the end price. And let's get as many folks who are interested, who are serious players, let them bid and determine the market price. Why speculate in terms of what can go up, down, what's rural penetration going to do, what's data going to do? All of that will obviously be factored into by various players who will incorporate those into their business plan and then bid appropriately. We are going to a spectrum neutral environment where technology is going to again not be determinative of the use of spectrum. Let the bidders decide.